Hello, this is Brian.
And this is Stephanie.
Welcome to the making and the remaking of a codependent mind.
The tool we're going to be discussing today is the tool of being present. And we're choosing to do this tool not because we have a firm grasp on what the tool is and how to use it particularly, but because you have a interesting history with the tool of being present.
Yes, I have a common thread. This word has been bouncing around in my life for quite a while now, including both of those previous relationships that we've talked about with R and J. I think back further than that possibly, but at some point during the R relationship, I started using this word present, that I wasn't being present, as being a problem with me.
And causing problems in the relationship with R, and then causing problems in the relationship with J.
It seemed as though I thought it was maybe the main problem at the time. The way I thought of it was I didn't listen. Like that seemed to be the thread that I was being told on a regular basis, was that you don't listen.
So R told you you didn't listen, J told you you didn't listen. And the way that you understood that was, I have a problem, and the problem is I'm not present enough.
Yes. So, it took a while before I really got to the heart of what I thought it was, but I thought it was just, my mind is very noisy and I'm not really listening half the time. And so I miss things they say and this makes them upset and this is a problem and I need to just listen better.
We had an episode on attention as a tool, as an important tool that can be used productively in relationships. And we talked a bit about that, about how the traumatized brain and traumatized body can find it difficult to pay attention to the things that it wants to pay attention to. And it sounds like really in terms of the R and J relationship, we talked about this in that episode as well, that they didn't like the way that you were using the attention tool.
Right. There was really not much to how they wanted me to use it. It was just pay attention to me, listen to me. That's it. I don't care about anything else about what you're doing or thinking, as long as you listen to me and remember everything I say. That's pretty much what it boils down to.
And in that episode, we mentioned that for you, attention was largely used as a tool for threat management or for performance.
As long as I do listen and I do remember what they say, then I'm performing correctly. That means that I'm a good partner, I'm a good boyfriend, I'm a good husband because I'm listening. I'm doing a good job at being present is what it eventually came down to. I would remember that word and remember to apply that word, and it would be the same thing if I wasn't performing correctly. If I did forget things, I wasn't being present. I need to go back to doing the things that I thought I learned to be present, like meditate and things like that.
So as usual, you internalized the problem. They're expressing a complaint, and they're, to be fair, they're saying it's your problem, but you accepted it as your problem. You internalized it, and you interpreted it as it's a problem with being present.
So I'm assuming, A, that I care about what they're saying, and B, that what they're saying they said, they even actually said, because a lot of times that wasn't the case. They changed. And so I'm assuming all of that, like, yes, okay, there was something said, I didn't listen to it. I need to get better at listening to it. Doesn't matter what it is.
And they both used this language as well, this language of present, like you're not present enough, to mean you're not paying attention to me in the way that I want to be paid attention to. So really, they're using the language to win the argument, the conflict. There's no self-reflection on their part. Oh, is it the way that I'm communicating? Is it what I'm communicating? Is this things he's interested in hearing? It was solely, again, you're not using the tool of attention correctly, and that's your problem. There's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they were doing the flip side of exactly what I just said that I was doing. It was just like, yeah, they're assuming what they're saying is interesting, does need to be retained, is correct, factual, whatever it is. This is an important thing that they said, and I didn't listen to it. And that's the bottom line.
So the caveat, neither of us have looked extensively into the literature of being present. You've done more over your life, especially with Eckhart Tolle, who's kind of associated heavily at this point with the language of being present and the power of now. And so we'll say that caveat a number of times. We're not pretending to be experts on what it means to be present, but I'm pretty sure that whatever it means, whatever being present is, it's not coerced attention. I think coerced attention causes the opposite, causes difficulties for people to be present in the moment and in their lives. In my life, for instance, when I think about environments, situations, relationships that involved coerced attention, the biggest one that comes to my mind is school, which I did not enjoy, which I was terribly bored at, and sometimes lonely and depressed. And in any case, school is a coerced attention environment. And it's funny because you think of the classroom and you think of the teachers at the beginning of the class doing roll call, and what we all say is, present.
Present, right.
Brian, present. Stephanie, present. I was not present in school. I had to check out. Otherwise, I would because it was too painful just to be forced to pay attention to things that I didn't care about for hours a day, every day.
Mm-hmm. I remember that feeling, except, I felt more powerless. So I guess it was easier for me to feel as though I'm doing this because I have to.
Well, maybe you were more used to it because you had coerced attention in most of your life. Yeah. Your parents demanding attention from you when they're angry or they're depressed. Your childhood friend, G, that was definitely a case of coerced attention from when you were very young. I didn't experience that so much outside of the school, but absolutely in school. I mean, schools are built around coercing the attention.
Right. Quiet. Stop talking. Listen to me.
Yeah. And here's what you need to learn. And they get to decide what's being taught. So you already had strategies from outside the school life to bring in things like compartmentalization, things like having a noisy brain, just meaning you were thinking of other things than what was going on in front of you because it was uncomfortable to be in that moment.
It wasn't a big leap for me, is what you. Yes.
Yes, but I remember that feeling as well. It's like I can't be here like for 6 hours, fully here. I'm listening to these people that I'm not interested in. So being present is not coerced attention, and that is what was happening to you in those relationships. So in relationship terms, being present is not coerced attention. So that's how it kind of played out in your relationships as yet one more problem that you had to fix,
right.
that they identified and that you had to fix. But then even on the personal side of that, you have this thread of thinking that being present was a problem for you personally, not just in relationships, and that somehow addressing that problem was going to solve a whole bunch of issues for you.
Yeah. So I rolled it together with other issues, like you said. I mean, I was depressed, anxious, my noisy brain, things like that. And during our relationship near the end, I paired up with this life coach who actually taught Tolle. And I had read Tolle years before, and I kind of liked it, but I didn't really understand it. And the first thing this guy says is, your past doesn't matter. I don't care about it. And none of that is you. So there's this new thread to it that I didn't really hear about before. Before it was just like, I'm not listening. And then I hear this other new thing. Well, you can also get rid of your depression by being present. Wow. Okay. That sounds interesting. Now I can kill two birds with one stone. I can listen to people and I can not be depressed. I couldn't reproduce everything that he actually said, what Tolle actually said, or what even the life coach. But the life coach definitely did seem to be focusing on this. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the future. It doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. So anything that happened to you in the past, who you were, isn't who you are, things like that. And for me, I found it to be a great tool to just avoid painful emotions. I mean, that's basically what I wound up doing.
I can see why that would be appealing for you, since your past kind of sucked and your future was scary. So why would you want to think about them?
Yeah, exactly right. I didn't feel like I could go to either of those places, even though I was constantly going to those places. So now this was giving me an excuse. I had this guy telling me, that I was paying big money to, telling me, you don't need to think about that. It's actually hurting you to think about that. Okay, great. Cool. I won't then. I'll just focus on what's going on right now. My depression started going away very quickly while I was working on this, but what I didn't realize at the time, didn't make the connection, was really, I think the main reason the depression was going away is because I was separated from R during that time. We had moved apart for a few months and I was hanging out with other people doing things, and there was this whole suite of things that I was doing that made me feel better.
So the first time in a long time, your present was actually pretty good compared to your past, even your very near past, and compared to what your future may be, which would either reconcile with R, which would cause problems emotionally, or failing at the relationship. So yeah, you were in this kind of little bubble that was the present, where you didn't have to think about any of this painful stuff that was going on around you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point when you said the present was actually okay. Because before, yeah, at any moment I was going to be condescended, insulted, whatever. But at this particular point, that wasn't going to happen. Like, I was feeling as though on an average day that wasn't happening, and that felt great. So my present was okay. So I had a place to go at that point. I could be present. But being present in that relationship wasn't really an option for me either. So yeah, dwelling on the past, worrying about the future, sure, that's a problem. But also I couldn't be present. I couldn't be any of those things. I couldn't really occupy any of those spaces.
It sounds like when you've talked about this work you did with this coach, really what was happening and you've described it this way, is you were being given permission to compartmentalize, which you've been doing your whole life.
Yeah, right.
As you just said, permission to avoid painful feelings, permission to avoid thinking about things that were uncomfortable or painful, permission to avoid feeling things that were uncomfortable or painful.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great way to look at it is permission, because it's not necessarily, I didn't learn any new tools in this. I thought I did for a long time. I thought I'd learned these amazing tools, but I was already doing these things, like you said. And this was just some powerful person and a book saying that I should be doing this. So I was on the right track, avoiding my emotions.
So let's talk a little bit about compartmentalization as well, because that's another way that you took being present, was to put in a box and tuck away your past, put in a box and tuck away any thoughts of the future, and even put away any painful things that were going on in the present and tuck them away as if they weren't important.
I was always trying to find a way to interpret things like, say, you're not supposed to resist the present. You're not supposed to, back to like the serenity prayer, accept the things you cannot change. Well, so I'm thinking, well, I can't change anything. So I'm just going to accept everything.
I'm going to accept everything. And we're not going to do compartmentalization as a tool in relationships. We're not going to do an episode on that. But on a personal level, it can absolutely be a useful tool.
Yeah. I mean, in our book, we talk about this a little bit. And I think we've talked about it in the previous episode too. Sometimes it's useful to set aside, say, painful emotions in a moment. Like, say, we said in the book about first responder maybe having to put aside just fear of the situation, or maybe thinking about their family or something because they're going into this dangerous situation. They're going to be more useful not having that distract them from the situation.
And I'm currently using compartmentalization in my emotional life because there are things going on politically and socially in my world that I find very scary and upsetting. But at this point, I feel like I have done everything that I could do that's in my power to affect that situation, and that there's really nothing I can do at this moment. So my thinking about it all the time, or reading about it, or trying to deal with the feelings that come out of it is not useful for me or anyone else in my life. So I don't read the news anymore. I used to read it every day. I'm kind of a news junkie. I deliberately and consciously avoid references, conversations, news stories about that situation.
I mean, that is sort of just an extreme version of accepting the things you cannot change.
I think this is critical. You mentioned the serenity prayer. You're supposed to have the wisdom to know the difference. So I feel okay about my compartmentalization for a couple reasons. One of them is I'm doing it intentionally. I've thought about the ways in which I might have power and I don't have power. And again, I've decided at this point, there's no power that I can be exercising other than the choice of my attention. But there are conditions in which I will have more power, and I am prepared when that happens to take this out of the compartment and to give it my attention again and give it some emotional bandwidth and some intellectual bandwidth. So I think that's different. Like, I'm not just stuffing it in a compartment and forgetting that it's even there and never thinking about it again. And then also I recognize this is not a long-term solution. So I'm using it intentionally, and I'm usually using it temporarily to get me through a period in my life when I have very little power over a situation that I find scary and threatening. So, I'm hoping that I'm demonstrating some wisdom there in doing that. But it really comes down to this issue of power. What power or agency do I have in this situation, and how can I exercise it?
And so you have a good sense of that. And like you said, you went into this intentionally knowing what your power was or wasn't. And that's such a huge difference than if we were to contrast the way that I would use compartmentalization, which was just a default. I feel powerless in general. So I'm assuming that I don't have power in any situation. So that's, I'm just going to compartmentalize that no matter what it is. It's slightly uncomfortable. I'm going to compartmentalize it all the way up to it's super painful and I compartmentalize it. But then I'm also, of course, compartmentalizing pleasurable feelings along with it. So I'm just an absent person.
Yeah. So kind of compartmentalization is in some ways the opposite of being present.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
You are being absent in major areas of your life. There are large emotional and psychological categories that you're just being absent from.
Yeah, and it's odd because I remember thinking, oh, I just need to be present, as in like I need to ignore the past, I need to ignore the future and just focus on what's going on right now. I'm sitting in a chair, I'm looking out the window.
And that's pretty reductive view. Again, you're leaving out. If it's just you in a chair looking out a window, that's not a very rich life. You're leaving out large swaths of your life that you're absent from.
Yeah.
So this is also why we're not going to do an episode on it, because we don't really think it is a primary relationship tool because of its connection to powerlessness and power. Why are you powerless in your relationship? Why has one or both of you decided that you have to set aside things like sex or betrayals or disconnects? Why do one or both of you decide that those have to be set aside and not talked about and not thought of as important?
And then just leave it that way indefinitely. And that's definitely what I did in our earlier days. It can be useful if you choose as a couple to do that, but it has to be temporary, of course. I mean, you're say we're going to a party or something and we're about to socialize with some people and we were in the middle of an argument. It's not very useful at that point to just continue the argument at the party. So it's good to, okay, should we set this aside? Let's talk about this when we get home. It's a good version of chosen compartmentalization as a couple.
Chosen and temporary.
And temporary. That's the key, right? You do have to revisit it. Otherwise, yeah, if someone like I was, would be like, okay, maybe if I don't bring it up, this won't come up again. Because that's the way I compartmentalize, just like, oh, okay, that's too painful. I'm going to forget about that. I'm going to hope it never comes up again.
So what is this being present? So it's not coerced attention, although, yeah, probably attention is part of it, but that attention is not coerced. It's not compartmentalization. Mm-hmm. It's not just, I'm not going to think about anything that's painful for me to think about, and I'm not going to feel anything that's painful for me to feel. That can't be being present, because that sounds like being absent to me. So what is being present? And what is present?
Tolle's description of it is basically that the past and the future are just constructs, like mental constructs. They don't actually exist. The present moment is the only place you ever live your life.
I have two problems with that. One, I don't really understand it, although we can talk more about it. But the second problem I have, and I think it's kind of a big one, is like, I'm not interested in giving up the past and the future. The past, for me, whatever it is, whatever the nature of its existence, is absolutely a source of insight, of knowledge, of pleasure, of connection. Similarly with the future. The future is a source of excitement, also a source of feelings of connection. So we didn't really talk about, as we usually do, what category of relationship work being present as a tool might be good for. But I think absolutely connection piece.
I think knowledge and understanding also, because this is the huge difference that I've noticed in my life by actually caring about my past, because I carried this all the way into our relationship, this whatever I thought being present was, and ignoring the past and ignoring the future. I was still very much in that when we got together. And now I see the value of the past, like, even when it's painful. It can be extremely helpful, and it informs me.
So if we want to keep the past and the future in our lives and in our relationship, which I think we do, the question then, yes, how do we structure that? And like you were saying, even though you were told to ignore the past and the past didn't matter, it did have power over you in the present moment. And yeah, that's not great. So we're back to this issue of power. And it's true, we don't have power over the past in the way that we have power over our present moment, or even in the way that we have some power over our future. We put in this hierarchy, right? Past, almost no power. Future, some power. Present moment is the most power we have.
And I like the way you're describing this, because this is putting the emphasis of the power on the person rather than the moment itself. Because I think that's where I got hung up, is I felt as though I was supposed to be finding power in the present rather than being powerful in the present.
One of Tully's books is The Power of Now. And so what we're saying is what is powerful about the now is that we are powerful in it, not that it is privileged in some way. It's that we're privileged in the now, we have more power. That being said, we don't have a lot of power over the past. That doesn't mean the past has to have power over us, such that we either have to go no contact with the past because it's so powerful. It's not. It's similar to how we've talked about emotions. The past can offer you things, but you decide how to interpret it. You decide what is important. You get to decide what you want to take from the past and what you want to leave behind. Ideally, that can be a struggle for sure. And the same things in a relationship. The past of a relationship and your individual pasts. You decide, is this past? What is happening now? If it is the past, why is it intruded in the present? Do I want to bring it into the present, or do I need to find a way to leave it in the past?
The past can be in the present for those exact reasons, being that the effects of it, whatever maybe trauma I experienced, but even just the memories, are here. If I'm reminded of them, they're present. So it's the effects, the power that I can have is not to change them or anything like that, but the power I have is over those effects and how I interpret those effects, as you said, and how I feel about them and what I do with those emotions and how I can use them now, right now.
Use them, exactly. They're useful.
Yes.
Because they can give you, which they have done for you, when you let yourself really go into the past. There's been a tremendous amount of insight and knowledge. There's also been absolutely pain, but there's been a lot of pain relief, which we've talked about extensively in this podcast. So much pain relief and shame relief.
And a lot of that has been permanent. It still hurts when I go to but it hurts way less. And before, even if I wasn't thinking about it, it still hurt. But because I knew to some extent that I was ignoring it. So that happened to a large part because you did not treat the past as all powerful. So it had to be avoided or discarded or dismissed. But you approached it from an empowered stance. You chose to go back there and to extract from it what you needed in the present. And that's another thing is, yes, there can be absolutely pain and suffering when you do that. But there's also pleasure and connection in the past. There's that too, right?
So if you just decide, no, none of that, then you're missing out on that.
Yeah, it was recently our wedding anniversary, and we chose to do something we've done before, which is watch the video. There was a video of our wedding, and that's just feels so good. It feels connecting. It feels nice. Be reminded of it and who was there. And
we relived the past, and in doing so, accessed all those emotions and refreshed all those emotions of excitement in each other and hope and love and, as you said, connection.
Yeah, I don't want to throw that out along with all the painful stuff just because I don't want to handle the painful stuff.
And similarly for the future, for every relationship, there's absolutely pain in the future because there's going to be a loss. One of you is going to be left behind. But there's also excitement and anticipation and a sense of closeness that can come from engaging with the future and planning for a shared future and getting excited about a shared future. And why not bring that into the present moment as well? I can totally understand privileging the present moment. For sure. It does have more weight or more reality. I don't know. Again, I'm not whether the metaphysics of all of this. So the past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. The present does. It's like, why? Why does the present exist any more than those? I don't get it. But anyway, since we want to keep all those concepts, yeah, I'm totally fine with the present having more weight and being given more weight, for instance, in the way we're talking about. So if there is a painful feeling in the relationship, is that coming from the present moment? Or is it from the past moment? Because you're gonna weigh it differently and you're gonna handle it differently. And similarly, is it anticipating future pain? It's not useful to a relationship or to an individual, I think, to be focused all the time on future pain. Question, is it happening now? No, it's not happening now. It's not happening today. I'm not losing you today. So today I can be here with you.
And in order to do that, you have to be able to access the past and the future and not cut it off like I did, because that makes it even more difficult to ask that question and to use the serenity prayer or whatever. Like, is there something I can do? Because if I'm not trying to even ask myself, is this a past or a present issue? then it's all just an issue and I just need to avoid it all, including the present. So if there's something painful going on right now, well, it feels the same as if it's the past or the future. It doesn't really matter. It's pain. I need to avoid it.
I need to absent myself. I need to be absent from this situation.
Yes.
So I'm going to choose to be over here where none of that is happening. So the way we're talking about being present, which I'm sure Tolle does and other people do as well, is it's showing up as your full self. And that's going to include your past and your future. It's going to include all the messy emotions. It's not going to be just serene and zen-like. It can be messy, but there's a fullness there that I think of when I think of being present, a fullness and a richness to that.
Yeah, so for me, a big piece of that, which was absent before, was my emotions. And now I'm incorporating my emotions. And one of the reasons why I couldn't do that is because my emotions were very much tied to my past and my future. And I was trying to avoid them. But now showing up as an integrated person, as my full self. So going back to those relationships with R and J, when it was just coerced attention, they weren't also holding space for me to be present. They didn't want my presence. They didn't want to know. They weren't interested in my feelings or what I was feeling about something. They just wanted to make sure that I was listening and obeying what they were saying.
Part of being in conversation with them, or really just listening to them, which was often the dynamic, was you had to compartmentalize any anxiety you were feeling or any fear you were feeling or any boredom you were feeling in order to pay attention to them. So that's not presence. Your presence would incorporate all of those emotions, and you would decide which of the ones needed to be given attention. And like you just said, your partner would be holding space for your full self.
And which is what you do. So you care what I think. So like say...
By the way, he's pointing at me right now.
Oh, yeah, right.
Thank you.
So you care what I think. And same for me. I don't want to be saying something that you're not interested in and then just plow ahead and keep on talking and demand your attention. Like that doesn't feel good to me either. So by holding space, I want to make sure we're actually having a dialogue that we're both interested in and excited about, and this is doing something for us.
We go for walks almost every morning and talk, and sometimes we'll be talking about something and I'll say, actually, I wasn't really listening because I'm distracted by this, something that was keeping me up last night, or I'm feeling anxious about something. And then so we pivot and we talk about that. Because, what I'm saying is I can't give my full self to this conversation because this other emotion or subject is distracting me. And then, so what's great about our relationship is that we then decide together, well, let's be present for this conversation, this other conversation that you need to have. And that feels to me what being present should feel like in a relationship.
Yeah, what makes this a great tool is what we're talking about is we're deciding consciously and sometimes discussing how to be present together. And if, we're having a conversation and I'm distracted by something, I'm not bringing my full self. And I know the difference. There's a big difference when I am just trying my best to ignore this thing that's taking up at least 50% of my, and then it doesn't feel good. I know I'm barely listening to you. And it's better to take a step back and say, hey, hang on a second. I'm feeling really anxious about something, and this is using the tool productively.
And it's helping each other use the tool in our lives as well, because it's not always just about listening and in conversation. It could be just if we're in a moment or enjoying a beautiful sunset and one of us is having difficulty kind of being in that moment, being fully in that moment because of some distraction or anxiety. And then that's a way that those are situations where, again, we can help each other relieve that anxiety. And then so both of us, as you said, which I really like, just be present together, which is a really nice feeling. I feel in those moments connected to my life. And then when I'm with you, I feel extra connected to you and our shared life by having these moments that have the sense of richness and fullness to them and calm and peacefulness.
So again, this is not we're not trying to say anything negative about Tolle or his teachings or anything like that. I got what I got out of it, and he may be saying all this. And so if you find him useful, and if you want to reach out and tell us how you find him useful, please do.
It's a little bit funny, right? Because it sounds like good advice. and certainly harmless advice, like be present in your life. And yes, you managed to take it away and do some real destruction.
Yeah. It
to yourself.
I used it in exactly the opposite way as it seems like you're supposed to be using it. And I seriously doubt that's the way he's instructing you to use it.
Be absent from your life and just let things happen to you. Bad things happen to you and feel okay about them. So yeah, hopefully this was a helpful conversation and not a offensive one to anyone who follows this teaching. Of course, let us know though. Leave us a comment or send us a note about how you've managed to be present in your life or what challenges you find to be present in your life. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, and we'll talk to you again soon.